So now we get to a point in this video series where I have to deviate a bit from the structure of the last two installments because neither Joey nor Phoebe is part of a super significant relationship with another one of the main characters, and Barney, despite my comparison of him to Joey in part 1 of this series, really is barely comparable to Joey at all outside of very surface level qualities. But since surface level qualities are pretty much the best connection I've got between these characters, I may as well start there. There's a reason that in the last part I said that Marshall and Lily fit the description of a direct upgrade from their predecessors better than any other couple, because in terms of singular characters, Barney just blows Joey out of the water, and comparing the two really illustrates how masterfully crafted Barney is and how poorly crafted Joey is. Though at the beginning of each of these shows, you could easily be excused for thinking otherwise. It is my firm belief that Joey was at his best at the beginning of Friends and that Barney was at his worst at the beginning of How I Met Your Mother. The two both start off as womanizing playboys with an inflated ego, yet their undeniably charming personality, dynamic with the other group members, and glimmers of real compassion made them endearing and very entertaining. As time went on, however, they polarized. Barney's best attributes got further accentuated and expanded upon as his character got exponentially more fleshed out, while Joey's worst attributes progressively became his only attributes, or rather his only attribute, that being his intelligence. Joey was never known for being particularly smart, but he was at the very least functional. He would even occasionally crack the kind of witty, sarcastic remarks that Chandler is so well known for. But as the show goes on, Joey regressed. He devolved from an airheaded yet lovable member of the group to a child who seemingly needed constant supervision else he'd break something or get lost or do something else that would cause trouble. He became Flanderized. Flanderization is a term used to describe when a character's secondary traits slowly become their entire character. The prime example of this is of course Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, who this term is named after, but this isn't a video about The Simpsons. Essentially, Joey begins the series with multiple attributes, some positive and some negative, but as the show progresses, his stupidity slowly becomes his only trait. By about midway through the series, virtually every single Joey joke is making fun of how clueless he is in any given situation. Disregarding that it makes no sense why a perfectly healthy adult would mentally regress in the way that Joey seems to, this change in his character slowly makes him harder and harder to like. It's like if you grew up with a friend who always knew just what to say to cheer you up, but as you both grew up, they would keep making the same jokes, referencing the same hilarious events that had happened to both of you years ago, and doing it with absolutely no self-awareness. It's just hard to watch because you still like them, but everything they seem to say and do now annoys you. I sincerely feel bad for Matt LeBlanc, Joey's actor, because he had to play this character for 10 years. Imagine making the same joke over and over for the better part of 10 years, and the fact that they're making fun of your character's intelligence is just salt in the wound. The only bit of what could be considered development for Joey comes in his relationship with Rachel, but I'm hesitant to call this development. Joey falls in love with Rachel, but he doesn't want to act on his feelings since he knows that she has a history with Ross. Joey and Ross have a heart-to-heart about the whole situation, and Ross ends up giving Joey his blessing, even though it still hurts him that Rachel could be with someone else. After a few attempts of acting like a couple, Joey and Rachel realize that they just aren't clicking and they decide to stay friends. I think this arc was a really good idea in concept, but what's so weird about it is that it doesn't really go farther than being a concept. Joey and Rachel end up in the exact same position after their relationship was over as when it started. As much as I dislike how Ross and Rachel's breakup was handled, it did at least have obvious long-lasting effects on their relationship. Now, Joey and Rachel were definitely still in the infancy of their relationship, and they didn't end on bad terms like Ross and Rachel, but you could ultimately remove this subplot and have very little effect on the rest of the story. Ironically, the most significant amount of character development that this relationship generates is in somebody who isn't even a part of it, Ross. Ross recognizing that he is obsessed with Rachel to the point that it hurts him to see her happy in a relationship with someone else and then deciding that he wants to change is by far the most progression Ross makes away from a manipulative, paranoid psychopath, even if it is almost completely undercut by the finale. Again, it's not that this arc is bad for Joey, it really isn't anything, and therefore it isn't bad or good, which feels weird considering it was a constant subplot for 2 whole seasons. I guess you could argue that it shows that Joey is capable of true compassionate love and that he's not just motivated by sex, but again, it's not like the show does anything with this. Joey doesn't begin a new long-term relationship after he and Rachel break up, and Joey obviously has that passionate love for his other friends, so there was really no reason to believe that he couldn't have this kind of relationship with a romantic partner. I just find myself thinking, what's the point? And it's unfortunate because, like I said, Joey started off extremely likable, but over time he became easily the weakest member of the cast of Friends. On the flip side, Barney is easily the strongest member of How I Met Your Mother. Okay, he's actually really close to Ted for being my favorite, but I had to say easily for a better transition sentence, which I now realize I have completely nullified the effect of by explaining the logic behind my wording for too long, but whatever, we're keeping it! Barney is almost everything I could possibly hope for out of a sitcom character. He's hilarious, genuinely emotionally endearing, and he's played by a gay actor. It doesn't get any better than that. Jokes aside, I genuinely love Barney's character in How I Met Your Mother because unlike Joey, he evolves as the show goes on, from a borderline cartoon character to one of the most grippingly emotional characters I have ever had the pleasure of watching. Words cannot describe how much I love it when a show is able to be ridiculous and larger than life while also investing me into its core characters as real people without straining my suspension of disbelief. Which I know is a very high bar to set, but How I Met Your Mother clears it with flying colors, and in so many different aspects which I delve into deeper in a later part of this series, but most significantly in Barney Stinson's character arc. As I stated before, Barney begins How I Met Your Mother as a pretty typical playboy with a charming personality, and furthermore, I'd argue that he pulls this off much better than any other sitcom character who fits this archetype because he always takes it to the extreme. He works a high-level corporate job at Goliath National Bank, so he gets paid 16 crap loads a year, which means that he can do virtually anything and have it be justified by the fact that he's incredibly rich. Want to make him have a worldwide business devoted to getting dumb girls to show him their rack? I could believe it. Want to give him a hologram projector? Go for it. Want to give him a guy who gets him a guy for virtually any task you could think of? Totally doable. This gives Barney infinitely more comedy potential than look how stupid this character is. Isn't it funny that this character doesn't know what that word means? Isn't it hilarious that this character can't do grade school level math? And the best part about all of this, the part that makes Barney truly rise above his predecessors, not just Joey, is how his personality and character arc are implemented into his cartoonish, wacky persona. Remember how I said that I love it when a show is able to deliver over-the-top comedy and get me invested into characters at the same time? Well, How I Met Your Mother does this masterfully with Barney by making his ridiculous and intentionally exaggerated personality traits an integral part of his character. You see, Barney is not just wacky and cartoonish for the sake of providing the audience with a joke. Barney himself is acutely aware of how over-the-top his actions are and that they are entertaining to experience, which is exactly why he acts the way he does. As is touched on in a few instances in How I Met Your Mother, Barney's mission statement in life is to make every night legendary. He wants to create super insane and memorable experiences for himself and even more so for his friends.
Whatever you do in this life, it's not legendary unless your friends are there to see it.
You see how it all comes full circle? Barney's seemingly empathy-lacking exterior persona is in fact deeply rooted in some of the most compassionate and empathetic intentions out of any character in the show. And going even further than that, How I Met Your Mother provides a perfect explanation for how Barney acquired this philosophy. As we learn later in the series, Barney's father was a party monster to a potentially even greater extent than Barney, and as a kid, Barney admired him very much for this quality and wanted to emulate it. For God's sakes, Jerome's last words to Barney before walking out of his life were "never stop partying." Of course, with his father gone, Barney's mother seemingly was able to keep his party side under control, and by the way, can I just say, what a fantastic depiction of a single mom. Loretta struggled every single day to take care of her two sons, and she didn't do a perfect job by any means, but she tried her hardest and feels genuinely bad that she wasn't able to give Barney and James a better life. Seriously, the scene where Barney says that Loretta was basically two parents in one for him would have had me crying if not for the fact that they used his framing of the sentence as a bit of a joke. Still super heartwarming though. There's too much amazing stuff with this character to address in one video, but back to Barney's development. Barney's mother clearly instilled him with some more, let's say, docile attributes than, knocking down a blue whale at a natural history museum. But many years later, upon losing his then-girlfriend to a generic businessman with money and suits, Barney became motivated to get revenge, leading to his taking a job at GNB. Thus, his absorbent amount of money fueled his inner party animal to finally take the reins, also due likely in no small part to the lifestyle of suits, booze, and strip clubs that he was then exposed to. Barney was a mostly unempathetic, selfish person up until he made friends with the rest of the group, but their presence ended up fueling yet another transformation of Barney into the person we now know him as. Everything about Barney is executed masterfully well, and as the seasons go on, turns him into more and more of an actual person that the audience cares about, all while being incredibly entertaining and, say it with me, not breaking immersion. This is why I said that Barney is barely comparable to Joey. By even halfway through each show, the two of them have taken such drastically different paths in terms of development, to the point that if you showed somebody who had never seen either of these shows before only one of the later seasons of each, the thought that Barney might have been based on Joey would more likely than not never cross their mind. But Barney's excellence doesn't even end there, because now it's time for me to talk about his relationship with Robin. As you might expect by this point, Barney's relationship with Robin parallels Joey's relationship with Rachel on face value, but looking a bit deeper will reveal just how much better it is. First of all, the whole point I had about Joey and Rachel's relationship feeling unnecessary could not apply less to Barney and Robin, as it is very clear that their relationship was planned from the start. There are countless specific moments wherein it's hinted that they might have some attraction to each other as early as season 1, and let me tell you, the build up to them actually getting together is a slow burn. I'm sure that some people didn't like that it took them so long to actually get together given all the hints, and I understand why, but I feel like the long stretch of seasons with nothing more than hints and little romantically or sexually charged interactions between the two were very necessary for their arc to be as powerful as it was. Barney and Robin had not met previous to the show starting, so they effectively started their relationship from ground zero, and I'm glad that they were given enough time to develop a very close friendship before the show launched into romantic subplot mode. And once they actually get together, the consistency of realism remains, well, consistent. As you might expect based on their personalities and what the show has established of them so far at this point in the story, neither of them are very equipped for being in a long-term relationship, or even a very close one at that. As a result, they quickly end up fighting a lot, and after realizing that they are incompatible, they break up on good terms. I love it when a bad couple realizes they're bad for each other and breaks up without any hard feelings. But in a similar manner to what I discussed of Marshall and Lily's arc throughout season 6, Barney and Robin breaking up doesn't just send them right back to being normal friends with no side effects, despite their good intentions. Seeing how Barney is dealing with the breakup, basically sleeping with as many women as possible, makes Robin feel like Barney never really valued their relationship or her, because he doesn't seem sad at all to be separate from her. And upon realizing this, Barney apologizes and makes it up to Robin by letting her and her then boyfriend Don go on a super date, which Barney was planning to go on with another girl. Again, this goes to show Barney's true compassion for his friends, and it's all wrapped up in a believable, well-executed arc. Now, Barney and Robin do end up getting together again, this time actually getting married, but like with the other two relationships in each of these shows, it takes us until the final episode to get the resolution to that arc, and I'll be saving my points on that for a later section in this analysis. And with all the main relationships in both of these series covered, it's time to move on to the only character I've yet to analyze in these shows, and the only one with no other character for me to compare them with, Phoebe Buffay.
Sometimes men love women, and sometimes men love men. Then there are bisexuals, though some just say they're kidding themselves. La 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 la.
Phoebe is kind of a wild card in Friends, and to be honest, I don't exactly know how to feel about her. A lot of her jokes are about her being an airhead and generally not reading the vibe of the room very well, which I actually was very excited to see get explored later on. She did grow up on the streets after all, so it makes perfect sense that she never got super accustomed to how the middle and upper class generally act and are expected to act. She also makes jokes and comments that often feel inappropriate and that make other characters uncomfortable, and I for one was thoroughly interested. But unfortunately nothing really comes of this. We learn more about her past, namely that her birth mom is actually alive and that her dad had a whole other family, but none of this really seems to affect her person as the seasons go on. There are a few moments where it's hinted that Phoebe is actually a lot smarter than she lets on, which kinda undercuts a bit of this characterization. I suppose I feel similarly about Phoebe on the whole as I do about Joey and his relationship with Rachel. As a specific example, I direct your attention to Phoebe's pregnancy. As it turns out, Phoebe's brother and his fiancée are unable to have kids, and so Phoebe decides to be a surrogate for them. However, after the kids are born, Frank, Phoebe's brother, just takes them and dips out of the show, only to appear in a few rare episodes later on. It just kind of felt like this huge event should have had a bigger impact on who Phoebe was as a person, but she quickly settles back into the same role she served before the pregnancy. Now, I understand that it sounds like I've been pretty critical of Phoebe on the whole, but keep in mind that I'm talking about all of this under the pretense that it was missed opportunity. There is one relationship that I thought was done very well with Phoebe, and that is her relationship with Mike. Mike Hannigan is introduced early on into season 9, and the dynamic he has with Phoebe actually touches on almost all the missed opportunities in Phoebe's character I just described. Mike gets together with Phoebe after a bad divorce, which has caused him to lose faith in the idea of marriage. This becomes a fundamental issue in his and Phoebe's relationship because Phoebe's end goal in her love life is marriage, and they actually split up because of this.
Huh, that seems familiar.
However, Mike ends up changing his mind, and eventually the two of them get engaged and married, and throughout the whole process, Phoebe is blissfully happy that she finally gets to have a normal life, which she hoped to achieve ever since she was a little girl. And the episode where Phoebe and Mike get married is legitimately touching. I will say, however, that none of Phoebe's biggest moments felt as emotionally gripping to me as nearly all of the biggest moments in How I Met Your Mother, because like I mentioned earlier, I feel like her development was a little ignored for the larger part of the series. Not nearly to the degree that Joey's character was, though. Also, there's the fact that Mike's character feels a little thrown in. I mean, plenty of guest stars and one-off characters appear in Friends only for one episode, then just kind of leave afterwards and only reappear every once in a while, so it never quite registered for me that Mike and Phoebe were a serious couple until they got engaged. By and large, though, I would definitely say that I liked Phoebe. Now, you might remember that I said I was glad that Phoebe didn't have a direct character connection in How I Met Your Mother, and now you're confused because I just said that I liked her. Well, dear viewer, that is because the only parts of Phoebe which I thought were genuinely worth adapting and given more expansion were more so ideas that got attached to her character rather than her personality or comedy style, both of which I found a little offsetting. And it seems that the creators of How I Met Your Mother were on the same wavelength as me because they managed to explore the life of one of their characters growing up without a full family in Barney, as I have detailed in this video. And that is what I think really makes the difference between mediocre shows and great ones. Mediocre shows tend to struggle to connect the plot and characters with their theme. Truly great shows are not only able to do this, but they progress the narrative in a way that feels natural and which delivers the core message powerfully. This concludes part 1C of why How I Met Your Mother is better than Friends. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a like, and if you want to see more content from me, you can subscribe to the channel and check out all my other content. I'm also interested to hear what all of you have to say about these shows, so post your thoughts in the comments. Finally, if you want to see more of this content from me, make sure to hit the bell icon to get notified of when I upload future parts of this series, and until then, have a wonderful day. I will see you in the next one. Continued in part 2.